Aries, formerly known as Calvin Van Lowe, is an employee of the Blue Ridge Caravan Company at Big Bend Tunnel. Before changing his identity to Aries and finding Blue Ridge, Calvin was a cryptid hunter, inventor, and engineer working for the Bish Company prior to the Great War. Calvin Van Lowe grew up in Lewisburg, West Virginia, and his parents owned Van Lowe Taxidermy in town. After his parents' death, Calvin's older sister, Shelley, inherited the family business. Though Calvin still maintained a residence and office in the building, an eccentric young man, Calvin was described by Shelley as always being the odd sort, but highly intelligent. A psychological evaluation described Van Lowe as having extremely high mental acuity and cognitive skills. However, he was also described as having a dissociative view of the social world and an inability to associate context with stimuli. Alongside his high school friends Scott Scoot Conroy and Roy Gary, Calvin was a member of the Truth Seekers, a group devoted to hunting cryptids spotted in West Virginia. However, the group was disbanded after Calvin began attending Vault-Tec University in August 2072. Despite the Truth Seekers splitting up, Calvin never shook his obsession with hunting cryptids, namely the sheep squatch. Following his graduation from Vault-Tec University, Calvin was hired by the Bish Company, an out-of-state energy corporation that aimed to exploit his obsession for their own gain and gave him the codename Black Sheep. Bish organized Calvin to move back home to Lewisburg so that he could develop products for the company through various unique projects. Living with his sister, Shelley, in the family home was intended to be a temporary arrangement, but Bish invested in building Calvin a secret basement lab while they were meant to be finding a property of his own. Although Shelley technically owned the business, Calvin, as the signing owner, sold Van Lowe Taxidermy to the Bish Company under Shelley's nose. The Bish Company also provided Calvin with 2 assaultron units to undertake his work. One of Calvin's projects saw him faking sightings of the sheep squatch and stirring up public attention using these assaultron units, dubbed the imposter sheep squatch. However, his first few attempts failed, leading the company to threaten Calvin with an ominous warning. Although he pleaded with his handler, Bo Peep, asking corporate to have patience, he continued to fail, which angered the company even further. Just before the Great War, Calvin attempted to reprogram one assaultron unit with the sheep squatch mating rituals, a less than elegant attempt at possibly finding a real sheep squatch, but the reprogramming went awry and the unit misinterpreted the word overwrite for override. The assaultron unit escaped the lab, maiming him in the process. Calvin was declared missing, though fixer Big Bad Wolf, who had been assigned to Calvin, presumed that he had been killed by the assaultron. The imposter sheep squatch later killed Bo Peep and Big Bad Wolf, the latter of who tried but failed to capture it using the pylon ambush site. Shelley, who had no knowledge of the secret underground lab, contacted the police to investigate Calvin's disappearance. However, as the war discontinued all search efforts for Calvin, Shelley resorted to posting posters around Appalachia, hoping that someone would be able to bring her some closure with regards to what happened to her brother. Before long, though, she gave up the search for Calvin and went to work for her family friends, the Timmermans, in Kentucky. Calvin managed to survive the imposter sheep squatch attack, albeit with his face horribly disfigured. He erased his past and assumed the new identity of Aries. He also began using a mask to cover his face, as it keeps his jaw attached, and he cannot breathe without it. He keeps his cards close to his chest, with his history being a mystery to virtually everyone in post-war Appalachia, even his current employers, the Blue Ridge Caravan Company, for who he works as a caravan guard. However, Aries does mention being a local, and occasionally slips an obscure reference about his past life. Killer robots possibly being nearby is a particular trigger of sorts for Aries. Bartender Herschel Klein knows that Aries has an encyclopedic knowledge for everything strange, including cryptids, aliens, and the aforementioned killer robots. Due to his prior employment with the Bish Company, Aries recommended usage of the Harper's Ferry Tunnel to the Blue Ridge Caravan Company, although he did not work at the tunnel himself. He was aware of Bish's work in the underground pipeline there. As the tunnel is secure and discreet, it made for a good spot for caravans. However, he is unaware that a sheepsquatch imposterling created from a corruption of one of his own sheepsquatch mating ritual programs is loose in the tunnel, though far away from the caravanner's resting spot. In 2104, a group of around 15 caravanners went missing in the tunnel, perturbing both Aries and Joanna Mayfield. Although Paladin Leila Romani of the Brotherhood of Steel 1st Expeditionary Force initially suspects the Blue Ridge Caravan Company and Aries of being directly involved with the disappearances. The events of the quest Out of the Blue eventually establishes Aries and his employer's innocence, and that the Hellcat Company committed the kidnappings. Using Blue Ridge as a source for the human test subjects for Dr. Edgar Blackburn, Aries expresses a dark and eccentric personality, often getting on the nerves of people like Rudy Fernandez and Paladin Romani, with his cryptic references to violence and overall odd behavior. He acknowledges the Blue Ridge Caravan Company for playing an essential role in rebuilding Appalachia. The character of Aries and Calvin Van Lowe was designed by Carl McKevitt, who also created much of Blue Ridge. He had planned for Calvin to make a reappearance since the Lying Low questline was first introduced. He also confirmed that Aries is still human and not a ghoul. Aries intentionally says Viola instead of Voila during Out of the Blue, despite the insistence of autocorrect. Carl McKevitt and the dialogue editor agreed that it would be funny and in character for Aries to say the wrong word. Carl stated that he received many community reports from players who assumed it was a typo that made its way into the voice line. Colin was going to be Calvin's original name during an early point in his development. However, Carl McKevitt decided on Calvin as it was the name of his hamster as a kid, as well as the name of his Fallout 3 player character. Aries in zodiac astrology is the ram. More specifically, a ram is a male bighorn sheep, a reference to Calvin's obsession with the sheep squatch. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing for more.